Now we have another guest who's joined the conversation here in the studio, Chief Mrs. Priscilla Kuye. She's the first female president of the Nigerian Bar Association, as well as the first regional vice president of the International Federation of Women Lawyers. Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Kuye.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, you came in after we had a conversation, and incidentally, when you walked into the studio, Chief Olokpade was smiling, meaning that you know him,
yes,
or he's known you over time.
Yes. Many years.
Many years. I like that.
My husband and myself, yes.
Before you came in, he said something about ensuring that our history is kept right. You have been in the Nigerian Bar Association considered a pressure group, an advocacy group as well. Tell us what you think about the President's address, where we are today and where we are going to.
Well, where we are today is not very good. And what I think we should do, I think we have departed from what our founding fathers, the people who really founded Nigeria and drafted the first constitution, we have departed greatly from what they wanted Nigeria to be. And I think in future, we ought to, personally for me, this presidential system is very, very expensive. In my own view, I may be wrong. You know, I think it is very, very expensive. I think government has to reduce costs of governance. And many of the people, they have to work for the common good of the people. Well, they have to work for the common good of the people. And I think our constitution should be amended. You know, people have been talking about restructuring, but it is the National Assembly that is going to do this restructuring, because the constitution will have to be amended. Are they willing to do the restructuring for the people? You know, there are so many things that are wrong with our constitution. And I think that seriously, the government should sit down and look at it. And you know, even the last conference that was held, they arrived at so many conclusions. And I personally feel that it should be, at least some of the things that they arrived at, the conclusions should be implemented, you know, for the common good of Nigerians. I'm not happy at what is happening in the country now. You know, our naira is weak. The poor people are suffering. They cannot eat 3 square meals a day. The youths are not employed. There's a high rate. Even the rich will tell you they're suffering too. Yes, well, maybe the rich will be able to manage a little bit because they are rich. But the poor are suffering. They can't eat 3 square meals a day.
We're heading for a break in about a minute or two. I have a very important question I would like to ask, part of your professional and work life, because not just being a lawyer and a very strong advocate of democracy and advocacy and good governance, you spent some time as the president of the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. Yes. And I'm sure within that space you've had interactions with American businessmen and government officials from the United States, and from the Nigerian side of the discussion, you've had discussions with some ministers, cabinet ministers over the years while you serve in that capacity, as well as the private sector. We want you to speak to that. What did you learn during this space of years as to where we are from economic structure, the structure of the economy we run, and what you think the world perceives us and how you think we've done? Because Chief Olokpade spoke, and it's amazing and really disheartening, that's the right way to put it, to find an economy that frustrates a 90-year-old Nigerian. That is really, really disheartening. If he's frustrated at this age, then we have a big problem on our hand. Neil, I think we need to take a break.
Indeed, we'll go on a quick break, and when we'll come back, we'll continue the conversation. Please don't go. Wow, but let me ask you this question while we're waiting for Mark. Chief Olokpade, when you were talking earlier, before Mrs. Kuye came in, you talked about being arrested for asking for your rights in the United Kingdom. But here in Nigeria, we have cases, or we have issues of agitations in the Niger Delta. We have agitations in the Northeast. We have agitations, well, some is an insurgency, but it started out as an agitation for one thing or the other. We have different groups agitating for one thing or the other. We also have in the Southeast as well. But agitations, rights, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. How would you comment on this?
Well, as a young man, I grew up to know that there is someone called a boss, and the color of his skin makes him my boss. A 21-year-old boy was my boss when I was in Lands Department before going to UK. Now, he's He was sent out here to work here. He was the boss of Nigerians who were about 40, 50 then, who served during the Second World War. Now, one felt, rightly or wrongly, that it's a right that you should belong and own what you have. If it's lorded over you, you must have someone to explain why it is lorded over you. They had no reason other than they were milking us, they were building on us, through us. We did all the cheap labor for their work. During the Second World War, most Nigerians went and worked. After the Second World War, Nigerians, West Indians went to help build Britain. I was there in the 50s. Now, we were asking that, well, we needed some form of freedom, which is a right, it's God's given right. It's not a privilege. And those were the rights we were fighting for, carrying placards in Britain. We had some British parliamentarians who were very, very supportive, like late Fenner Brockway. He stood by the Africans on the whole. And then when I come to Nigeria again, now I don't have a right in Nigeria. I'm just be honest with you. I don't have a right in Nigeria. Because one little brat comes up, sees a politician, says, lock him up. They lock me up for no just cause. Another person sits down in the House of Assembly, House of Legislature, and says he wants this salary for himself. Nobody can query it. Someone works for 4 years, you say you're going to give him life pension. Yet your uncle worked for 20 years, they say that don't work for 35 years, or he's not 65 years old. No pension. What is the justification in that? Tell me, give me just one reason why you feel that chap in the House who sat there for less than 365 days of any 1 year, he works there for 4 years and he receives life pension. Please, for God's sake, let's be honest with ourselves. I keep on using the word honesty. This is something missing in Nigeria. Honesty and thank you. We need it.
Very, very interesting. Very poignant the way you've laid it out. I guess we have a bit of a I guess we have a clear audio path.
Yes, we have.
Which is studios now for Makwe Ogun to weigh in on this very important conversation for a few minutes. Makwe, it's good to have you back. I'm sure you would want to engage these two seniors that we have here, we're special to have here, as they call them, from the country's political capital.
Well, Boasting, you can say that again. I mean, I'm so pleased that we have the privilege of their company this morning. But, you know, listening to Chief Olokbade, you definitely can understand the disappointment he feels when you compare Nigeria 1960 to where it is that we are now. But I do have a question for Chief. Is there anything at all? Is there anything at all that, you know, gives you a glimmer of hope that we could indeed turn this situation around, maybe no longer in your lifetime, but maybe for future generations ahead, that it will not always be this way?
Well, this is a sad question. Sad in the sense that this generation, I belong to this generation, I'm in the 21st century, so I'm in the same generation.
we're privileged to share the same century with you.
I was in the 20th century, I'm in the 21st century. Yeah. Now, most of the young ones, they have reasons to behave the way they behave. They were all expecting manna from heaven. It hasn't showed up. The new utopia, they've gone to good institutions of higher learning, they've made the grade. They haven't got a good job to go into. But having said that, they themselves are selfish and greedy. I started work as a civil servant at £9 a month. Then, £9 a month. And when I graduated in England, I was coming back home, I was offered a job of £780 a year. My daughters, my sons who are working, are earning hundreds of thousands a month. Do they know what it takes to save money? When I started working, a late cousin of mine said to me, Femi, I said, sir, you are earning £9 a month. Save £1 every month. Manage on £8. Next year, when your salary is increased to £12, you've been managing on £8, you can now save £4. That was what I learned. And I tell these children, no. A young man goes to a public gathering, finishes a bottle of champagne costing 34,000 naira at a sitting, a young man. He sat next to me at a funeral, 34,000. I sat down, I looked at him. He's so bloated. Now, that young man, would he save money? His intention is, oh, the money comes, it will come the other way, continue to. This recession, which we are now going through, is going to be a big lesson for every one of us. There is a program in Michigan called The Rich Also Cries. Not only the poor, the rich cries. The so-called rich, there are classes of rich people in Nigeria. There are those who are morally rich, and those who are morally poor, and those who have earned money honestly, and those who have not labored but they've made money. There are those categories of people. And I don't want our young ones to emulate those characters.